When the hospital doors burst open at 2:47 a.m., Liam Carter carried his unconscious daughter through the chaos like a man who'd forgotten how to breathe. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage on her head, and the fluorescent lights turned everything the color of fear. He'd survived wars no one knew about, dismantled threats that never made the news, walked away from a life of power most men would kill for, all to give his little girl something he never had: safety. But tonight, in this overcrowded emergency room where no one recognized his face and everyone saw just another broke father begging for help, none of that mattered. The only identity that counted was the one written in his daughter's medical chart under Guardian, and it might not be enough to save her. If you're watching this story unfold, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're tuning in from. I want to see how far this journey reaches. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The St. Catherine's Hospital emergency room smelled like industrial cleaner trying to cover something worse. Liam's boots left wet prints across the scuffed linoleum. Rainwater mixed with mud from where he'd found Emma crumpled at the bottom of the apartment stairs. His hands shook as he held her small body against his chest, her 7-year-old frame so light it made his throat close up. "I need help," he said to the intake nurse, but his voice came out wrong, too controlled, too flat. Years of training made him sound calm when he should have sounded desperate. "My daughter fell. She won't wake up." The nurse, a heavy-set woman with reading glasses hanging from a chain, looked up from her computer screen. Her eyes did what everyone's eyes did lately, scanned his worn canvas jacket, his oil-stained work pants, the way his hair needed cutting, making calculations. "Name? Emma Carter. She's 7. She hit her head about 20 minutes ago." "Insurance card?" Liam's jaw tightened. "I don't have it with me. She needs a doctor now." "Sir, I understand you're concerned, but I need to complete the intake. She's not responding to her name." Liam shifted Emma's weight, and her head lolled against his shoulder. A fresh trickle of blood seeped through the dish towel he'd wrapped around the wound. "She threw up twice in the car. I'm pretty sure that means Baiki Isiin Duanmaz. Take a seat in the waiting area. We'll call you when—" "No." The word came out harder than he meant it. 3 people in the waiting room looked up. Liam forced his voice lower. "Look at her, please. Just look at her." The nurse's expression didn't change, but she stood and came around the desk. When she got close enough to see the blood, the way Emma's breathing came too slow and shallow, something shifted in her face. "Room 4, she said, already moving. "Follow me." The examination room was small and cold. Liam laid Emma on the paper-covered table as gently as he could, but her arm slipped off the edge and he caught it, his chest constricting. She looked so small under the harsh lights. Her favorite purple sneakers, the ones with the glitter laces she'd begged him for, were scuffed and dirty. A young doctor pushed through the curtain, already looking at the tablet in his hands instead of Emma. "What happened?" "She fell down a flight of stairs, 12 steps, hit her head on the concrete landing." "You witnessed this?" "No. I found her at the bottom." Liam's fingers curled into fists at his sides. "I was at work. Our neighbor heard the noise and called me." The doctor finally looked up. His eyes went to Emma, then to Liam, and there it was again, that assessment, that judgment. "Where's the mother?" "Not here." "I need a parent or legal guardian to—" "I am the legal guardian." Liam pulled out his wallet with hands that wanted to shake, extracted his ID and the crumpled custody agreement he always kept with him. "It's just me and Emma." The doctor took the papers, glanced at them, handed them back. "We'll need to run some tests. Head injuries in children. I know what head injuries look like." The words came out before Liam could stop them. "She needs a CT scan, possibly an MRI. You're looking for intracranial bleeding, skull fractures, brain swelling." The doctor's eyebrows lifted. "You have medical training?" Liam wanted to take the words back, fold himself smaller, be less visible. "I read a lot." "Right." The doctor moved to Emma's side, shining a penlight into her eyes. Her pupils reacted sluggishly. "Has she been sick recently? Any medications?" "No medications. She had a cold 2 weeks ago, but it passed." "Any history of seizures? Developmental delays?" "No, she's healthy. She's—" Liam's voice cracked. He pressed his palm against the edge of the examination table. "She's everything." The doctor's expression softened slightly. "We'll take good care of her. I'm ordering the CT scan now." He tapped something on his tablet. But I have to tell you, Mr. Carter, if she needs surgery, we have a problem. The floor seemed to tilt. What kind of problem? Your insurance card wasn't just left at home, was it? Liam said nothing. St. Catherine's is a private hospital. If your daughter needs emergency surgery, we're talking about costs in the how much? Anywhere from 50 to 200,000, depending on the extent of I'll pay. Liam heard himself say it even as his brain did the math. He had $4,000 in his checking account, maybe another $2,000 in savings. He'd sold everything else, the watch, the cufflinks, the leather jacket that costs more than most people's cars, when he'd walked away from his old life. I'll figure it out. Just help her. The doctor studied him for a long moment. Let's see what the scan shows first. After he left, Liam pulled the single chair closer to the examination table and sat down, taking Emma's hand in both of his. Her fingers were cold. He rubbed them gently, the way he used to when she was a toddler with bad dreams. You're going to be okay, he whispered. You hear me, baby girl? You're going to be fine. She didn't respond. The machines around her beeped steadily, and somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. Liam closed his eyes and tried not to think about the last time he'd sat in a hospital like this, 3 years ago, when Sarah had signed the custody papers in a room that smelled like defeat and lawyers. You can have her, Sarah had said, not looking at him. I can't do this anymore. The crying, the mess, the way she looks at me like I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. You wanted to play house? Fine. She's all yours. He'd taken Emma home that day, all of 4 years old, scared and confused about why Mommy didn't want them anymore, and Liam had made a promise to himself. He would be enough. He would make their small life work. No one would ever take her from him. Now, watching her unconscious on a hospital bed with blood in her hair, that promise felt like paper. A radiology tech came 40 minutes later with a wheelchair. They wouldn't let Liam go into the imaging room, so he stood outside the door, hands in his pockets, staring at the scuff marks on the wall. He'd been in worse situations. He'd negotiated with warlords, defused bombs, made life or death decisions with seconds to spare. But this was different. This was Emma. The tech wheeled her back out 20 minutes later, and Liam followed them to a different room, smaller, more private. That felt ominous. Dr. Reeves will be with you shortly, the tech said. And then Liam was alone again with his daughter and the sound of his own heartbeat. He didn't know how long he sat there. Time moved strangely. At some point, a nurse came in to check Emma's vitals and adjust her IV. She smiled at him with practiced sympathy and left. When the curtain finally pulled back again, it wasn't the young doctor from before. The woman who entered moved like someone used to people getting out of her way. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Liam's car, and her dark hair was pulled into a twist that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. She carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from boardrooms and corner offices, not hospital corridors. She looked completely out of place, and she was staring directly at Emma. Mr. Carter? Her voice matched the suit, crisp, professional, unreadable. Who are you? Vivian Hale. She extended her hand. Liam shook it automatically, registering the firmness of her grip, the expensive watch on her wrist. I'm not a doctor. I'm the primary benefactor of St. Catherine's. I was here for a board meeting when I heard about your daughter's case. Liam's shoulders tensed. Why would my daughter's case come to your attention? Because Dr. Reeves mentioned to the hospital administrator that you were facing a significant financial barrier to treatment. Vivian's gaze moved to Emma, and something flickered across her face. Something that looked almost like pain. Your daughter needs surgery. The CT scan showed a subdural hematoma. If they don't relieve the pressure on her brain in the next few hours, the damage could be permanent. The room tilted again. Liam gripped the edge of the table. How much? Does it matter? Yes. Vivian's eyes locked on his. They were sharp, intelligent, the kind of eyes that didn't miss anything. 175,000, give or take. Liam felt the number like a punch. He looked at Emma, his baby, his reason for everything, and knew he didn't have a choice. I'll sell my truck, take out loans, That won't be fast enough. Vivian's voice wasn't unkind, but it was matter of fact. The surgery needs to happen in the next 2 to 3 hours. Then what am I supposed to... Liam stopped, stared at her. Why are you here? I want to cover it. The words hung in the air between them. What? The surgery. The hospital stay. Whatever she needs afterward. Vivian's expression didn't change. I'll take care of it. Liam's mind raced through possibilities, looking for the trap. People like her, people with money and power, didn't just hand out six-figure gifts to strangers. Why would you do that? Because I can. She said it like it was simple. And because she's 7 years old with her whole life ahead of her. That shouldn't come down to whether her father can produce a credit card at 2 in the morning. I don't know you. No. I don't take charity. This isn't charity. It's… Vivian paused, and for the first time her certainty wavered. It's the right thing to do. Liam looked at his daughter. Emma's chest rose and fell too slowly. The blood on her hair had dried to a dark rust color. He thought about his pride, about the life he'd carefully built where he didn't owe anyone anything, didn't stand out, didn't make waves. Then he thought about what would happen if he said no. Okay, he said quietly. Vivian nodded once, already pulling out her phone. I'll have the paperwork handled. Dr. Reeves will prep her for surgery immediately. Wait, Liam stood up. I need to know, is there a catch? What do you want from me? She looked at him for a long moment, and he had the strangest sense that she was seeing past the worn clothes and calloused hands, past the carefully constructed anonymity he'd wrapped around himself. Seeing something he'd thought he'd buried. Nothing, she said finally. I want nothing from you. But the way she said it made Liam think she was lying. Not about the surgery, about the nothing. The surgery took 4 hours. Liam spent them in a waiting room that smelled like burnt coffee and fear. He couldn't sit still. He paced until another father in the room asked him to stop because it was making everyone nervous. Then he sat in the hard plastic chair and bounced his knee until he thought he'd vibrate out of his skin. Vivian Hale left at some point, business to attend to, she'd said, but not before giving the hospital administration whatever verbal or financial assurance they needed. Liam watched her go with a mixture of gratitude and unease. He'd spent 3 years making sure no one looked at him twice. Now this woman, this stranger, had inserted herself into the worst night of his life. And he didn't even know why. Around 6 a.m., as pale light started seeping through the waiting room windows, Dr. Reeves appeared in the doorway. Liam was on his feet before the doctor said a word. She's stable, Dr. Reeves said, and Liam's knees nearly buckled. We successfully evacuated the hematoma. There was more bleeding than we initially thought, but we controlled it. She's in recovery now. Can I see her? Soon. She's still under anesthesia. The doctor's face was drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes were kind. Mr. Carter, I need you to understand she's not out of the woods yet. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical. We'll be monitoring her closely for any signs of brain swelling, infection, or secondary bleeding. But she's young and strong. Those are advantages. Liam nodded, not trusting his voice. You should prepare yourself, Dr. Reeves continued. When she wakes up, she may not be quite herself right away. Confusion, agitation, memory gaps, these are all normal after this type of trauma and surgery. It doesn't mean permanent damage. It just means her brain needs time to heal. I understand. One more thing. The doctor hesitated. That woman who arranged for the surgery, Ms. Hale, she left instructions that you're not to be billed for any of this. The surgery, the ICU stay. Medications, follow-up care, it's all covered. Liam felt the weight of that settle on his shoulders. Did she say why? No. But between you and me? Dr. Reeves glanced down the hallway, then back. I've worked with the board here for 6 years. Vivian Hale doesn't attend hospital meetings at 2 in the morning. She also doesn't personally intervene in patient cases. Whatever her reason, you made an impression. The doctor left to check on other patients. Liam sank back into the chair and put his head in his hands. An hour later, a nurse led him to the ICU. Emma looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines and monitors. Her head was wrapped in bandages and tubes ran from her arms. But her chest rose and fell steadily, and when Liam took her hand, it was warm. Hey, baby girl, he whispered, pulling the chair as close as it would go. You gave me a hell of a scare. She didn't respond, but her fingers twitched slightly in his palm. He held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. He must have dozed off at some point, because the next thing he knew, sunlight was streaming through the window and someone was placing a cup of coffee on the side table next to him. Liam jerked awake, instantly alert, old habits, and found Vivian Hale standing by the window. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to startle you." He straightened in his chair, wincing at the stiffness in his neck. "What are you doing here?" "Checking in." She nodded toward Emma. "How is she?" "Stable. Still unconscious." Liam rubbed his face, felt the stubble rough under his palm. He probably looked like hell. "You didn't have to come back." "I wanted to." Vivian picked up the second coffee cup she'd brought and took a sip, still looking at Emma. "I don't have children. I've never particularly wanted them. But watching her in that emergency room," she stopped. "I don't know. Something about it stayed with me." Liam studied her. In the daylight, he could see details he'd missed before, the faint shadows under her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way she held herself like someone used to being watched. She wasn't beautiful in the conventional sense. Her features were too sharp, too severe, but there was something compelling about her face. Intelligence, intensity, loneliness. That last one surprised him, but he recognized it because he saw it in the mirror every morning. "Thank you," he said, "for what you did. I know I said it last night, but I don't think I really—" He gestured helplessly. "You saved her life." "The doctors saved her life. I just removed a financial obstacle." "Still," Vivian's expression softened slightly. "You're welcome." They sat in silence for a while. The machines beeped. Outside in the hallway, someone laughed, life continuing like the world hadn't almost ended. "Can I ask you something?" Vivian said eventually. Liam tensed. "Depends what it is." When the doctor asked about your medical knowledge, you deflected, but you knew exactly what Emma needed before they'd even finished the examination. She turned to look at him directly. "That's not from reading parenting blogs." Here it was, the moment he'd been dreading since she walked into that emergency room. Liam had gotten good at hiding who he used to be, but apparently not good enough. "I was in the military," he said carefully. "Saw my share of head injuries." "What branch?" "Does it matter?" "No." But she didn't look away. "I'm just curious about who I'm having coffee with at 7 in the morning in a hospital ICU." Liam wanted to tell her it was none of her business, wanted to shut down this conversation before it went anywhere dangerous. But she'd saved Emma's life, and that bought her something. Maybe not the whole truth, but a piece of it. "Marines," he said. 12 years. Got out when Emma's mom left. Decided I wanted to actually be around to raise my kid instead of deployed halfway around the world. That must have been a difficult transition. It was the right choice." "I didn't say it wasn't." Vivian took another sip of coffee. "What do you do now?" "Warehouse work, night shifts mostly when Emma's asleep. Neighbor watches her when I can't be there." He heard the defensiveness in his voice and hated it. "It pays the bills. I'm not judging. Everyone judges. Not everyone." She set her cup down and crossed her arms, a gesture that seemed more self-protective than confrontational. "I grew up in foster care. Bounced between 7 different homes before I aged out at 18. People made a lot of assumptions about what kind of person I'd turn out to be." Her mouth twisted slightly. "Most of them were wrong." Liam looked at her with new eyes. "How'd you end up running a company?" "Scholarships, student loans I'm still paying off. Working 3 jobs through college." She shrugged. "Ruthless ambition and an inability to accept failure. The usual." "That's not the usual." "No," she agreed. "I suppose it's not." Emma made a soft sound, and both of them immediately focused on her. But she didn't wake, just shifted slightly under the blankets and settled again. Liam released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You should go home," Vivian said quietly. "Get some rest. Shower. Change clothes. She's not going to wake up in the next few hours, and you're no good to her if you collapse." "I'm not leaving her." "Mr. Carter, Liam, if you're going to keep showing up in my life, you might as well use my first name." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Liam, you've been here for almost 12 hours. The nurses will call you immediately if anything changes. And you live, what, 15 minutes away? 20. Then you can be back here in 20 minutes if they need you." She picked up her purse. "I'll stay until you get back." Liam frowned. "You don't have to do that. I know, but I'm going to anyway. She settled into the chair he'd just vacated, crossing her legs like she planned to stay a while. Go, before I call hospital security and have them escort you out for your own good. He almost argued. But the truth was, he felt like he'd been awake for a week, and he probably smelled like it too. And something about the way Vivian looked at Emma, like she'd personally fight anything that tried to hurt her, made him think his daughter would be safe. 1 hour, he said. Take 2. The traffic's terrible this time of morning. Liam grabbed his jacket, paused at the door. Vivian? She looked up. Why are you really doing this? For a long moment, she didn't answer, just looked at him with those sharp, lonely eyes. Because I understand what it feels like, she said finally, to be desperate and alone and watching everything fall apart around you. And because someone should have helped me when I was there. She glanced back at Emma. Consider this paying it forward. Liam nodded slowly and left before she could see that her words had hit harder than they should have. The apartment felt wrong without Emma in it. Liam stood in the doorway, looking at the evidence of their interrupted life. Her backpack by the door, homework half finished on the kitchen table, the bowl of cereal she'd been eating before she fell still sitting in the sink. He made himself move through the rooms, gathering fresh clothes, checking his phone messages. There were 3 voicemails from Emma's school, wondering where she was. One from his supervisor at the warehouse, asking if he was coming in tonight. And one from his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, her voice shaking as she apologized over and over for not watching Emma closely enough. He'd have to call her back, tell her it wasn't her fault. Emma had been going up those stairs to their 3rd-floor apartment alone for 2 years. The odds of her tripping, hitting her head just wrong, Liam stopped that line of thinking. It would drive him crazy. He showered, changed, made himself eat a protein bar even though everything tasted like cardboard. Looked at the clock. 45 minutes had passed. His phone rang. Liam grabbed it, heart slamming, expecting the hospital. But the caller ID showed a number he hadn't seen in 3 years. Sarah. He almost didn't answer, but some instinct, the same one that had kept him alive in places where the wrong move meant death, made him pick up. What do you want? Hello to you too. Sarah's voice sounded different, harder, or maybe he'd just forgotten what she sounded like when she wasn't crying. I heard about Emma. Liam's hand tightened on the phone. How? I still have friends in the building, Liam. Mrs. Chen called me. She had no right. She thought I should know my daughter was in the hospital. A pause. Is she okay? She had brain surgery. She's in the ICU. So no, Sarah, she's not okay. Jesus. For a second, she sounded like the woman he'd married, young, scared, human. Then her voice hardened again. This is exactly what I was worried about. What are you talking about? You, plain single parent, working night shifts, leaving her with whoever's available. Now she's hurt because you weren't watching her. Don't! Liam's voice dropped to something dangerous. Don't you dare come at me like you give a damn. You signed her away. You chose to leave. Maybe I was right to. Sarah's words came faster now, gaining momentum. Maybe this proves I made the right choice. You can't take care of her, Liam. You're struggling. She's getting hurt. What do you want? Silence. Then, I want to see her. No. She's my daughter too. On paper, maybe. But you haven't called, haven't sent a birthday card, haven't done anything to be her mother in 3 years. You don't get to show up now. I could fight you for custody. Sarah's voice went cold. I could tell a judge that she's being neglected, that she almost died because you weren't there. Liam closed his eyes. If you try to take her from me, I will bury you. With what? Your warehouse salary? She laughed, and it was an ugly sound. Face it, Liam, you're in over your head. The best thing for Emma is to let her go to someone who can actually provide for her. Someone like you? Someone better than both of us. A pause. My sister and her husband, they've been wanting kids. They have money, stability, a real home. Emma has a real home with me. Look where that got her. Liam hung up before he said something he couldn't take back. He stood in the middle of his small kitchen, hands shaking with rage and fear, and realized Sarah had just declared war. And this time, staying invisible wasn't going to be enough. If she came for Emma, if she actually tried to take his daughter away, he'd have to use everything he'd walked away from, every connection, every skill, every part of himself he'd buried. The thought terrified him almost as much as losing Emma. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "She's stirring. Doctor says maybe another hour." Vivian Liam grabbed his keys and ran. He made it back to the hospital in 17 minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws in the process. When he burst into the ICU, Vivian stood up from the chair, and he saw it immediately. Something had changed. "She opened her eyes," Vivian said. "Just for a few seconds. The nurse said it's a good sign." Liam moved to Emma's bedside. Her eyes were closed again, but her face looked different. Less pale, more present. He took her hand and felt her fingers weakly squeeze back. "Emma? Baby, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, opened halfway. It took her a moment to focus, and when she did, confusion clouded her face. "Daddy?" The word hit him like a freight train. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm right here." "My head hurts." "I know, you had an accident, but you're going to be okay." Emma's gaze drifted past him, landed on Vivian. "Who's that?" Liam glanced back. Vivian stood a few feet away, hands clasped in front of her, looking oddly uncertain. "That's a friend," he said. "She helped you." "Hi, Emma." Vivian's voice went gentle in a way Liam hadn't heard before. "I'm Vivian." Emma studied her with the brutal honesty of a 7-year-old. "You're pretty." "Thank you. You're pretty brave." Emma's attention drifted back to Liam. "Can I go home?" "Not yet. You need to stay here for a little while so the doctors can make sure you're healing right. Will you stay with me?" "Every single second." She seemed satisfied with that. Her eyes closed again, and within moments, her breathing evened out into sleep. Dr. Reeves appeared in the doorway, smiling. "That was excellent. Her vitals are strong, and the fact that she recognized you and communicated clearly, that's very promising." Liam felt something in his chest unclench for the first time since he'd found Emma at the bottom of those stairs. The doctor continued, "We'll keep monitoring her closely, but if she continues to improve like this, we might be able to move her out of the ICU tomorrow." After he left, Liam sank into the chair and put his head in his hands. The adrenaline that had been keeping him upright for the last 18 hours finally drained away, leaving him hollow. "You should sleep," Vivian said. "Can't." "Why not?" "Because the second I close my eyes, I see her lying at the bottom of those stairs." Liam lifted his head. "I see what almost happened instead of what did happen." Vivian moved to the other chair and sat down. "I know that feeling." "Yeah?" "When I was 14, I got placed with a foster family in Queens. They had 2 biological kids, both boys, both older. The father was okay, the mother was—" She paused. "Difficult. One night, the older son got drunk and decided to come into my room. I fought him off, locked myself in the bathroom, spent the next 6 hours sitting in the bathtub, holding a pair of scissors, convinced he was going to kick down the door." Liam looked at her, really looked. "What happened?" "He passed out. In the morning, I told the social worker. They moved me that afternoon." Vivian's voice was matter-of-fact, but her hands were clenched. "But for years afterward, I couldn't sleep without checking the locks 3 times. Couldn't relax unless I knew where all the exits were." "Is that why you don't have kids?" "Part of it." She met his gaze. "Mostly it's because I don't know how to be gentle, how to need someone or let them need me without it feeling like a trap. My entire life has been about being self-sufficient, not depending on anyone, not giving anyone the power to hurt me." A pause. "Children require the opposite of everything I know how to do." Liam understood that more than she probably realized. "You were gentle with Emma." "That's different." "How?" "She's not mine. I can walk away whenever I want." But the way Vivian looked at Emma when she said it, like she wasn't entirely sure that was true anymore, told a different story. They sat in silence for a while, 2 people who'd learned to protect themselves by staying alone, keeping vigil over a little girl who didn't know she'd become a bridge between them. "My ex-wife called," Liam said eventually. Vivian's eyebrows lifted. "Emma's mother? She heard about the accident. Now she's talking about custody, about how I can't provide for Emma, how she's getting hurt under my watch." He scrubbed his hands over his face. "She's not wrong about the money. I'm barely making it work. One medical bill like this, and—" He gestured at the hospital room. "Without you, I would have lost everything." But you didn't lose everything. Emma's alive. This time. Liam. Vivian leaned forward. Nothing about being a parent is guaranteed. Rich people's kids get hurt too. They get sick, they have accidents, they suffer. Money doesn't protect anyone from life. It just means you have more resources to deal with it when it happens. That's a pretty big advantage. Yes, it is. She didn't try to pretend otherwise. But what Emma needs most isn't money. It's you. Anyone can see that. The way she looked at you when she woke up, you're her entire world. What if that's not enough? Then you make it enough. Vivian's voice turned fierce. You fight, you adapt, you do whatever it takes. Because that little girl deserves to wake up every single day knowing her father chose her, that he didn't give up. Liam looked at this woman, the stranger, who'd crashed into his carefully controlled life and turned it inside out, and realized she wasn't talking about Emma anymore. She was talking about the 14-year-old girl in the bathtub with scissors, the one nobody had chosen, the one who'd had to save herself. Thank you, he said quietly. For staying, for caring, for... He gestured helplessly. All of it. Vivian stood up, smoothing her suit. I should go. I have meetings. Right, of course. She gathered her purse, started for the door, then stopped. Turned back. Would you... She hesitated and for the first time looked uncertain. Would you let me know how she's doing over the next few days? Liam pulled out his phone. Give me your number. They exchanged information like strangers making a business transaction. But when Vivian left, she glanced back one more time at Emma with an expression so naked and longing that Liam had to look away. It felt too intimate, too raw, like watching someone realize they wanted something they'd convinced themselves they could live without. Emma stayed in the ICU for 3 days. Liam barely left her side, surviving on hospital cafeteria coffee and whatever food the nurses smuggled him when they thought he wasn't looking. He called in sick to work, ignored the increasingly irritated messages from his supervisor, and tried not to think about the paycheck he was losing. Vivian came back twice. Once on the second day, carrying a stuffed elephant that Emma immediately clutched to her chest, and again on the third morning with breakfast sandwiches that actually tasted like food instead of cardboard. She never stayed long, always had somewhere else to be, someone waiting on a call, but her visits broke up the monotony of beeping machines and hushed medical conversations. On the fourth day, they moved Emma to a regular room. It felt like a victory. Look, Daddy, Emma said, pointing at the window. I can see the parking lot. That's pretty exciting stuff, baby girl. Mrs. Chen's car is down there, the blue one. Liam turned to see his neighbor getting out of her ancient Honda, arms loaded with what looked like enough food to feed an army. He'd texted her that Emma was awake and improving, but she'd been too worried to wait for permission to visit. 10 minutes later, Mrs. Chen burst into the room like a small, determined hurricane. Emma, oh sweet girl, you scared me half to death. She set down 3 grocery bags and immediately pulled Emma into a careful hug. Don't you ever do that again, you hear me? I didn't mean to fall, Emma said, her voice small. I know, baby, I know. Mrs. Chen pulled back, brushing Emma's hair from her face with shaking hands. Then she turned to Liam and her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I should have been watching closer. I should have... Stop. Liam put a hand on her shoulder. This wasn't your fault. Emma's been going up those stairs alone for 2 years. It was an accident. But I heard the noise. If I'd gotten there faster... You called me immediately. You did exactly what you should have done. He meant it. Mrs. Chen had been watching Emma since she was 4 years old, never asking for more than $50 a week and homemade cookies at Christmas. She'd been more family than hired help. We're okay. She's okay. Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes and started unpacking the bags with the determined efficiency of someone who needed to be useful. I brought soup and that casserole Emma likes, and some of those cookies with the chocolate chips. Mrs. Chen, you didn't have to do all this. Yes, I did. She pulled out container after container. You've been here for days eating vending machine garbage. Someone needs to make sure you don't waste away. She glanced at Emma. Both of you. A nurse poked her head in. Mr. Carter, there's someone here asking to see Emma. Says she's family? Liam's stomach dropped. What does she look like? Blonde, late 20s, said her name is Sarah Carter. Every muscle in Liam's body tensed. He looked at Emma, who was happily examining Mrs. Chen's cookies, oblivious. "Tell her visiting hours are over." "Sir, it's 2 in the afternoon." "I don't care. Tell her she's not welcome here." The nurse's eyebrows lifted, but she nodded and disappeared. Mrs. Chen had gone very still. "Sarah's here." "Apparently. Does she know Emma's—" "Yeah, she called a few days ago making threats about custody." Liam moved to the window, watching the parking lot. Sure enough, there was Sarah, arguing with the nurse by the hospital entrance. Even from 4 floors up, he could see the aggressive set of her shoulders, the way she gestured too widely. "She thinks I'm not good enough to raise our daughter." "That woman has some nerve." Mrs. Chen's voice went hard. "After everything you've done, she's not wrong about the money situation. Money isn't everything. Tell that to a judge." Mrs. Chen started to respond, but Emma interrupted. "Who are you talking about?" Liam turned back to his daughter, forcing his expression into something calm. "Nobody, sweetheart. Just boring grown-up stuff." Emma didn't look convinced, but she was 7 and easily distracted. "Can I have another cookie?" "You just had one." "But I had brain surgery. Doesn't that mean I get extra cookies?" Despite everything, Liam felt a smile tug at his mouth. "That's not how it works." "It should be." Mrs. Chen laughed and handed Emma another cookie anyway. "Just this once, but don't tell the nurses." Liam's phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. "How's Emma today?" He typed back, "Good. Moved to regular room. Trying to negotiate extra cookies based on medical trauma." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Smart kid." That's solid legal reasoning. "Her mother just showed up at the hospital. Tried to visit. Did you let her in?" "No." "Good. Do you need anything?" Liam stared at that question. The truthful answer was yes. He needed a lawyer, money, some kind of plan to fight Sarah if she actually filed for custody. But asking Vivian for more help felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. "We're okay. Thanks for checking in." The 3 dots appeared and stayed there for a long time. Finally, "I'm coming by tomorrow. Don't argue." Liam pocketed his phone and tried to ignore the complicated feeling in his chest. That night, after Mrs. Chen left and Emma fell asleep watching cartoons, Liam sat in the chair by the window and let himself think about what happened next. Emma would be discharged in a few days. He'd have to go back to work, explain the absence, hope his supervisor didn't fire him for missing a week. There would be follow-up appointments, medications, possibly physical therapy if the doctors thought she needed it. And somewhere in all of that, Sarah was going to make her move. His phone rang at 11. Unknown number, but the area code was local. "Yeah?" "Mr. Carter, this is Amanda Price. I'm an attorney with Family Services. I've been asked to contact you regarding a custody evaluation for Emma Carter." Liam closed his eyes. "That was fast. I'm sorry?" "Nothing. What do you need from me?" "I'd like to schedule a home visit. Standard procedure when there's been a request for custody modification. We'll need to assess the living situation, interview you and Emma, review financial records." "When?" "Would next Tuesday work, say 2 o'clock?" 4 days. He had 4 days to make his run-down apartment look like a place where a child should live. 4 days to figure out how to prove he was enough. "Fine. Tuesday at 2. "Excellent. I'll send you a confirmation email with the details. And Mr. Carter, this is just preliminary. Try not to worry." She hung up before he could point out that "don't worry" was a useless thing to say to someone whose entire world was being threatened. Liam looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully with her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm, and felt rage and fear war inside him. Sarah had abandoned this kid, walked away without a backward glance, and now she wanted to swoop in and play concerned mother because, why? Guilt? A sudden attack of maternal instinct? Or was she just trying to hurt him? He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't used in 3 years. Stared at the name for a long time before finally typing out a message. "I need a favor." The response came 30 seconds later. "Liam Carter." "I'll be damned. Thought you were dead." "Not yet. You still in the city?" "Same place. What do you need?" Liam's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. What he was about to do would open doors he'd spent 3 years keeping locked, would remind people he existed, would put him back on radars he'd carefully avoided. But Emma was worth it. Legal trouble, custody case, need someone who knows how to fight dirty. "I know a guy." When can you meet? Tomorrow. I'll set it up. Liam, you sure about this? He looked at his daughter one more time. Yeah, I'm sure. Vivian showed up at noon the next day carrying a bag from some expensive department store and wearing a dress that probably cost more than Liam's monthly rent. You didn't have to come, Liam said, even though he was glad she did. I was in the neighborhood. She set the bag on the chair. I brought Emma some books. Figured she might be getting bored. Emma perked up from her bed. What kind of books? Let's see. Vivian pulled them out one by one. Adventure stories. A mystery. And this one about a girl who builds a rocket ship in her backyard. I like rockets, Emma said solemnly. I thought you might. Vivian handed her the books, and Emma immediately started flipping through the pages with the intensity of someone who took reading very seriously. Liam caught Vivian's arm and drew her toward the hallway. We need to talk. Her expression shifted. What happened? Sarah filed for custody. There's going to be a home evaluation on Tuesday. What do you need? I don't... Liam stopped. Started again. You've already done too much. That's not what I asked. He looked at her, this woman who kept showing up in his life like she couldn't help herself, who looked at Emma like she was seeing something precious she'd forgotten existed. Why are you doing this? I told you. No, the real reason. Liam kept his voice low. You don't just throw around money and time on strangers. There's something else. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. I had a daughter. Everything stopped. Had? Liam repeated. She was born premature, 26 weeks, lived for 3 days. Vivian stared past him at something he couldn't see. I was 22, in graduate school, no money, no insurance, working 2 jobs and trying to finish my thesis. The father was irrelevant. I was alone. Vivian. She was so small. They said she might make it, but her lungs weren't developed enough. On the 3rd day, she just... Vivian's voice cracked, and she stopped, took a breath. The hospital bills bankrupted me. I spent the next 5 years crawling out of that hole, and I swore that if I ever had the power, the resources, I'd make sure no other parent had to choose between saving their child and losing everything. Liam felt like he'd been punched. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But the way she said it, like it was yesterday and every day since, told him it wasn't. What was her name? Vivian looked at him with those sharp, lonely eyes. Lily. They stood in silence for a moment, 2 people carrying grief they'd never fully set down. Emma reminds you of her, Liam said quietly. No. Emma's nothing like her. Emma's alive and vibrant and full of personality. Vivian's mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. But watching her fight to wake up, seeing you terrified of losing her, that reminded me of what it feels like to be powerless. And I'm not powerless anymore. So you're fixing what you couldn't fix back then. Maybe. She met his gaze. Is that wrong? No. It's just... Liam ran a hand through his hair. I don't know how to take help. I've spent 3 years making sure I didn't need anyone. Yeah, I've noticed. You're about as good at accepting kindness as I am at showing it. Vivian straightened her shoulders, and just like that, the vulnerable woman disappeared behind the CEO. Now tell me what you need for this evaluation. Liam gave in. The apartment's a mess. I work nights, so I'm not always there when Emma gets home from school. My bank account looks like a disaster, and Sarah's going to paint me as an absent father who can't provide. Can you take time off work? I've already been gone a week. If I miss more, I'll get fired. Then quit. He stared at her. I need that job. No, you need income. That's different. Vivian pulled out her phone. I'm looking at your situation, Liam, and here's what I see. You're capable, intelligent, clearly have skills beyond warehouse work. The only reason you're in that job is because you're hiding. I'm not. Yes, you are. I don't know from what, and I'm not asking. But you're working below your abilities because it keeps you invisible. She tapped something on her screen. My company has an opening in facilities management. It's day shift, better pay, benefits. You'd be supervising maintenance crews, managing contractors, basically making sure our buildings don't fall apart. Vivian, the job's real. I'm not inventing it for you. We've been trying to fill it for 2 months. She looked up. You want to provide for Emma? This is how you do it. Regular hours, steady income, health insurance that'll actually cover her follow-up care. Liam felt cornered and grateful in equal measure. People will talk. Your employees will know you're helping the guy whose kid you saved. Let them talk. I don't make decisions based on gossip. She held out her phone, showing him the job listing. Read it, think about it, but don't say no just because you're stubborn. He took the phone. The salary was nearly double what he made at the warehouse. The benefits package included medical, dental, vision. There was even a line about tuition assistance for dependents. This is too much, he said. It's market rate for the position. Check if you don't believe me. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean. Vivian took her phone back. But here's the thing, Liam. Sometimes accepting help isn't about you. It's about Emma. You want to win this custody case? Show up to that evaluation with a stable job, health insurance, and a plan. Give that social worker no reason to doubt you. She was right. He hated that she was right. When would I start? Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief. Monday. That gives you the weekend to get your apartment sorted and prepare for the evaluation. What if I'm terrible at it? Then I'll fire you like I would anyone else. But her eyes said she didn't believe that would happen. Liam handed back her phone. Okay. Okay? Yeah, I'll do it. Vivian nodded once, crisp and professional, but he caught the small smile she tried to hide. I'll have HR send you the paperwork. A nurse came by to check Emma's vitals, and Vivian used the interruption to leave, citing meetings she was already late for. But before she walked out, she paused. Liam, about the home evaluation, if you need someone to vouch for you, to talk about your character or Emma's well-being, I'm willing. You do that? Emma deserves to stay with her father. If I can help make that happen, why wouldn't I? After she left, Emma looked up from her rocket ship book. I like her. Yeah? She's nice. And she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby. Emma turned a page. Is she your girlfriend? Liam nearly choked. What? No, we're friends. Do you want her to be your girlfriend? Emma, Mrs. Chen says you're too lonely. She says you need someone who makes you smile. Mrs. Chen talks too much. Emma grinned. That's what Mrs. Chen says about herself. Despite everything, Liam laughed. His kid was going to be fine. Traumatic brain injury, surgery, a week in the hospital, and she was still giving him grief about his love life. The weekend passed in a blur. Liam got Emma discharged Friday morning, brought her home to an apartment he'd spent Thursday night cleaning like his life depended on it. Which, in a way, it did. He scrubbed floors, organized closets, threw out half the junk that had accumulated over 3 years of barely keeping his head above water. Saturday, he met with the lawyer his old contact had recommended. Marcus Webb was 60, African-American, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter. He listened to Liam's situation without interrupting, made notes on a yellow legal pad, and finally leaned back in his chair. Your ex-wife is fishing, Marcus said. She doesn't have a case, not a real one. Single fathers raise kids all the time. You have legal custody. Emma's happy and healthy, no evidence of neglect or abuse. The accident was exactly that, an accident. So why is she doing this? Could be guilt. Could be she wants to hurt you. Could be someone put the idea in her head that she should be involved. Marcus tapped his pen against the pad. Doesn't matter. What matters is we make this go away fast and clean. How? First, we document everything. Emma's medical record showing she's receiving proper care. Your employment history, the new job. Character witnesses. I want a paper trail that proves you're a stable, capable parent. Marcus looked at him over his reading glasses. Second, we find out what Sarah really wants. People like her. They don't actually want to raise kids, too much work. So she wants something else. Money? Maybe, or just the satisfaction of making you sweat. Marcus pulled out a contract. I'm going to need a retainer, $5,000 to start. That covers the initial investigation and filing responses. If this goes to court, we're looking at more. Liam's stomach sank. I don't have $5,000. You have a new job with a better salary, right? Most lawyers will take payment plans. Most lawyers don't know if I'll still have that job in 6 months. Marcus studied him for a long moment. You're scared. Yeah. Good. Means you understand what's at stake. He slid the contract across the desk. Sign this. We'll figure out payment. I don't lose custody cases, Mr. Carter, and I'm not about to start with yours." Liam signed before he could second-guess himself. Sunday evening, Mrs. Chen came over to watch Emma while Liam went to the grocery store. He was standing in the cereal aisle, trying to remember if Emma liked the chocolate kind or the honey kind, when his phone rang. Vivian. "Hey," he answered. "Everything okay?" "I'm outside your building." Liam froze. "What?" "I brought dinner and wine." "Well, wine for me. I'm assuming you don't drink when Emma's around." "Vivian, you can't just show up." "Too late. I'm already here. Buzz me up or I'm eating this Thai food in the parking lot." He almost told her to go home. But the truth was, he was exhausted and stressed, and the idea of not being alone sounded better than it should. Third floor, apartment 3B. By the time Liam got back from the store, Vivian was sitting on his couch with Emma, both of them eating pad thai straight from the containers, while some animated movie played on the TV. "You're a bad influence," Liam said, setting down the groceries. "I'm an excellent influence. I brought vegetables." Vivian held up a container of spring rolls. "These have cabbage." Emma giggled. "That's not how vegetables work, Daddy." "Thank you, Emma. Good to know someone in this apartment has sense." He joined them on this couch, and Vivian handed him a container of food that smelled amazing. They ate in comfortable silence, and Liam tried to remember the last time his apartment had felt like this. Warm, full, like a home instead of just a place to sleep. After Emma went to bed, Vivian helped him clean up the containers. "You didn't have to come," Liam said, loading the dishwasher. "I know." "So why did you?" Vivian leaned against the counter, wine glass in hand. "Honestly, I don't know. I kept thinking about Emma's evaluation on Tuesday, and you being here alone, preparing for it like you're preparing for war." She took a sip. "I thought maybe you could use some company." "I'm not very good company lately." "Neither am I. We can be terrible together." Liam smiled despite himself. "You're not terrible. You don't know me well enough to make that call." But she said it lightly, like she was testing whether he'd argue. "I know you saved my daughter's life. I know you keep showing up even though you don't have to. I know you lost a child, and instead of letting it destroy you, you turned it into something that helps people." He met her gaze. "That's not terrible. Don't." Vivian set down her wine glass. "Don't make me into something I'm not. I'm not noble or selfless. I'm just—" She stopped. Started again. "I'm tired of being alone. And when I'm with you and Emma, I'm not alone. It's selfish. It's human." Same thing. They stood in his small kitchen, and Liam realized they were standing closer than they had been a moment ago. He could see the gold flecks in her eyes, smell her perfume, something expensive and understated. "Vivian." His phone rang. They both jumped. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. Liam answered on the third ring. "What do you want?" "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Fine. Then listen." Sarah's voice was cold. "The evaluation is Tuesday. I want you to know I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because Emma deserves better than an apartment that smells like mold and a father who works himself to death. You don't know anything about our life. I know you're struggling. I know you can barely afford groceries, let alone everything Emma needs. And I know that accident happened because you weren't there." Liam's hand tightened on the phone. "If you have something to say it. Drop the custody. Let my sister and her husband adopt Emma. They'll give her everything. Good schools, a real home, stability. You can still see her, visits, holidays, but let someone else carry the weight. She's not a burden to carry. She's my daughter. She's our daughter, and you're drowning, Liam. Let her go before you pull her under with you." The line went dead. Liam stood there, phone in hand, feeling like he'd been gutted. "What did she say?" Vivian asked quietly. "She wants me to give up custody. Hand Emma over to her sister." He set the phone down before he threw it. "She actually thinks I'd do that. She's trying to scare you." "It's working." Vivian moved closer. "Look at me." He did. "You're not going to lose Emma. You're not drowning. And you're not alone in this." She said it with such certainty that he almost believed her. Tuesday, that social worker is going to see a father who loves his daughter, who's fighting for her, who has a stable job and support system. She's going to see Emma happy and healthy and exactly where she belongs. What if it's not enough? Then we make it enough. Vivian reached out and squeezed his hand. You're not doing this alone anymore. Understand? Liam looked down at their joined hands and felt something shift inside him. Something that had been locked down tight for 3 years. Since Sarah left, since he'd walked away from his old life, since he decided that being alone was safer than letting anyone close enough to hurt him. But Vivian was already close. She'd gotten past his defenses without him even noticing. Thank you, he said. She squeezed his hand once more and let go. I should leave. You need rest. Vivian, I'll call you after the evaluation. Let me know how it goes. She was out the door before he could say anything else, leaving behind the faint scent of her perfume and the feeling that something important had just happened. Tuesday came too fast. Liam took a personal day from his new job. His supervisor was understanding, thankfully, and spent the morning making sure the apartment looked perfect. Emma helped, organizing her books by color and insisting they needed fresh flowers on the table. Why? Liam asked, arranging the cheap grocery store bouquet in a vase. Because it makes it look like someone cares. Sometimes his kid was too smart for her own good. Amanda Price arrived exactly at 2. She was younger than Liam expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She shook his hand, smiled at Emma, and immediately started taking notes. This is a lovely place, she said, which was a polite lie. The apartment was small and old, but it was clean and clearly lived in. Emma's artwork covered the fridge. Photos lined the narrow hallway. Books overflowed from the shelf by the window. It's home, Liam said. Amanda spent an hour walking through the apartment, asking questions. How long had they lived here? What was Emma's routine? Who watched her when Liam worked? She interviewed Emma separately, asking about school, friends, whether she felt safe. Then she sat down with Liam at the kitchen table, pulled out a stack of papers, and got to business. I've reviewed the petition from Ms. Carter, Amanda said. She's alleging that Emma's recent hospitalization is evidence of inadequate supervision and that your financial situation makes you unable to provide proper care. The hospitalization was an accident. I understand that, but I need you to walk me through what happened that night. Liam did. The call from Mrs. Chen, finding Emma at the bottom of the stairs, the emergency room, the surgery, the terrifying wait. He kept his voice level, factual, but his hands shook slightly when he described seeing her unconscious. Amanda wrote everything down. And the surgery was paid for how? A benefactor, someone who happened to be at the hospital and offered to help. That's unusually generous. Yes. Do you have a relationship with this person? Liam hesitated. We're friends. She's been supportive since the accident. She? Vivian Hale. She's the CEO of Hale Enterprises. She's also the primary benefactor of St. Catherine's Hospital. Amanda's eyebrows rose. You're friends with Vivian Hale. Is that a problem? No, it's just unexpected. She made a note. I'd like to speak with her. Get her perspective on Emma's well-being. I can arrange that. They talked for another 30 minutes. Liam showed her pay stubs from his new job, explained the benefits package, walked through Emma's school records and medical history. By the time Amanda stood to leave, he felt wrung out. Mr. Carter, I want to be clear about something, Amanda said at the door. My job isn't to take children away from loving parents. It's to make sure they're safe and cared for. From what I've seen today, Emma is both of those things. But I still need to complete my investigation. I'll be speaking with Ms. Carter, her sister, Emma's school, and your character references. The process takes time. How much time? 4 to 6 weeks for a full report. 6 weeks of not knowing. 6 weeks of waiting for someone else to decide his daughter's fate. Okay, Liam said. Thank you for coming. After Amanda left, Emma climbed into his lap on the couch. Did I do good, Daddy? You did perfect, baby girl. Is Mommy going to take me away? Liam's heart cracked. No, I promise you that's not going to happen. Emma nodded against his chest, trusting him completely, and Liam held her tight, hoping like hell he could keep that promise. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. How did it go? Okay, I think. She wants to talk to you. Give her my number. I'll handle it. Liam stared at those words. I'll handle it. Like it was simple. Like Vivian could just fix things the way she fixed everything else. with money and influence and sheer force of will. Maybe she could. But that didn't make Liam feel any less like he was losing control of his own life. Another text. Come to dinner tomorrow night, my place. You and Emma. No arguments. He should say no. Should keep some distance, maintain some boundaries. But he was tired and scared, and the idea of facing another night alone in this apartment, waiting for the other shoe to drop, made him want to scream. What time? He typed back. 6. I'll send you the address. Emma looked up at him. Can we have pancakes for dinner? Yeah, baby, we can have pancakes. She smiled, and Liam tried to memorize this moment. His daughter safe in his arms, both of them still together, still whole. Because he knew, with the certainty of someone who'd learned that good things didn't last, that the hard part was just beginning. Vivian's apartment was nothing like Liam expected. He'd pictured something cold and modern, all glass and steel, the kind of place designed to impress rather than comfort. Instead, when the elevator opened directly into her penthouse, he found himself looking at exposed brick walls, hardwood floors worn smooth with age, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city like a painting. Wow, Emma breathed, pressing her nose against the glass. You can see everything, pretty much. Vivian appeared from what looked like the kitchen, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual suit. She looked younger like this, less guarded. I'm glad you came. Liam stood awkwardly in the entryway, still holding the bottle of wine he'd brought because showing up empty-handed felt wrong. We almost didn't. Emma had a meltdown about which shoes to wear. I wanted the purple ones, Emma said, not looking away from the window. But Daddy said they didn't match. Since when do you care about matching? Liam asked. Since we're going to a fancy place. Vivian smiled. This isn't fancy. It's just home. She took the wine from Liam. Thank you for this. Come on, dinner's almost ready. The kitchen was smaller than Liam expected for a penthouse, but warm and lived in. Pots hung from hooks above a butcher block island, and something that smelled incredible bubbled on the stove. Vivian moved around the space with easy confidence, stirring, tasting, adjusting heat. You cook? Liam leaned against the counter. I do a lot of things that surprise people. She glanced at him. Cooking relaxes me. Most nights I'm too tired or busy, but when I have time, it's therapeutic. Emma climbed onto one of the bar stools. What are we having? Pasta, with homemade sauce and garlic bread. Vivian pulled a pan from the oven. I figured you've had enough hospital food lately. I like pasta. Good, because I made enough to feed an army. They ate at the dining table, an old wooden thing that looked like it had history. Emma chattered about school, about the rocket book Vivian had brought her, about how her best friend Mia was jealous of her head bandage because it made her look like a pirate. Liam watched Vivian listen with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at Emma's 7-year-old logic, and felt something dangerous settle in his chest. This felt too normal, too right. Like they were a family instead of what they actually were. A man trying to keep his life together and a woman trying to fill a void she wouldn't acknowledge. After dinner, Emma asked if she could watch TV, and Vivian showed her to the living room. She came back to find Liam loading the dishwasher. You don't have to do that, she said. You cooked. I clean. That's fair. Fair doesn't really factor into most of my relationships. Liam looked up. What does? Transactions. I give something, I get something. Everyone walks away satisfied. She poured them both wine. But this, what we're doing, I'm not sure what it is. Does it have to be something? In my experience, everything is something. The question is whether we're honest about what. Liam dried his hands and accepted the wine glass. Okay, what is this? Vivian leaned against the counter, considering him. I think you needed help, and I needed to feel useful. I think Emma gave us both an excuse to not be alone, and I think we're both terrified of what happens next. That's honest. I try to be. Saves time. She took a sip. Did the social worker call you? Not yet, but she emailed asking for your contact information. I sent it this afternoon. I'll call her tomorrow, tell her exactly what she needs to hear, that you're a devoted father, that Emma's thriving, that the accident was a fluke. What if she asks about us? What about us? Whether we're, Liam gestured vaguely, together. Are we? The question hung between them. Liam thought about how Vivian kept showing up, how she looked at Emma with naked longing, how standing in her kitchen felt more natural than it should. He thought about the way she'd taken his hand in his apartment, the electricity of that brief contact. I don't know, he said honestly. I'm not sure I have the bandwidth for whatever this is becoming. That's fair. Vivian set down her wine glass. For what it's worth, I don't either. My life is complicated. I work 70-hour weeks. I'm responsible for 600 employees and their families. I don't have space for relationships that require maintenance. But Emma makes me want things I thought I'd made peace with not having. And you, she stopped. You make me remember what it's like to want something that isn't a business acquisition. Liam moved closer without meaning to. That sounds dangerous. It is. Her voice went quiet. I'm very good at maintaining control, Liam. It's how I survived, how I built everything I have. But around you, I feel like I'm losing my grip, and I don't know if that's terrifying or thrilling. Maybe both. Definitely both. They stood inches apart, and Liam could see the pulse beating in her throat, the way her breath hitched slightly. He wanted to kiss her. Wanted to close that gap and see what happened when two people who'd spent years protecting themselves decided to risk it. But Emma called from the living room, "Daddy, can we get ice cream on the way home?" And the moment shattered. Vivian stepped back with a shaky laugh. She has perfect timing. She really does. Liam drained his wine glass. I should get her home. It's a school night. Right, of course. They collected Emma, who hugged Vivian goodbye like they'd known each other forever instead of 2 weeks. In the elevator down, Emma leaned against Liam's side. I like Vivian's house, she said sleepily. Yeah? It feels safe. Emma looked up at him. Is she going to be around for a while? Liam thought about the question, about what a while meant when everything in his life felt temporary. I don't know, baby. I hope so. She's nice. And you smile more when she's around. Out of the mouths of children. The next week passed in a strange limbo. Liam started his new job and discovered he was actually good at it, managing people, solving problems, keeping complex systems running smoothly. Skills he'd honed in a completely different context, but that translated better than expected. His boss, a no-nonsense woman named Carol, gave him autonomy and didn't ask questions about his background. Emma went back to school with strict instructions to take it easy during recess. She complained about being treated like she was fragile, but Liam caught her napping every day after school, exhausted from the effort of pretending to be fine. Vivian called Amanda Price and apparently gave such a glowing character reference that Amanda mentioned it in her follow-up email to Liam. She also started showing up at their apartment more often, bringing takeout, helping Emma with homework, making herself useful in ways that felt both invasive and necessary. You know, people are going to talk, Liam said one evening, watching Vivian quiz Emma on multiplication tables. Let them. I'm serious. Your employees already think you're giving me special treatment. You are getting special treatment. I like you. Vivian looked up from Emma's workbook. Is that a problem? It could be, for you. I've built my entire career on not caring what people think of my personal life. Why would I start now? Because this time it mattered, Liam wanted to say. Because getting attached to them, to him and Emma, was different than her usual carefully controlled existence. But Emma got an answer right, and Vivian cheered, and the moment passed. Thursday afternoon, Liam's phone rang while he was supervising a HVAC repair. Marcus Webb's name flashed on the screen. Yeah? We have a problem. Marcus's voice was grim. Sarah's lawyer filed an emergency motion. They're claiming Emma's in immediate danger and want temporary custody transferred to Sarah's sister pending the full hearing. Everything stopped. On what grounds? They're saying the accident proves neglect, that you're working a new job and can't adequately supervise Emma, and Marcus paused. They're alleging that you're in a relationship with Vivian Hale and that you're accepting financial compensation in exchange for access to Emma. What the hell does that even mean? They're implying that Vivian is paying you, that Emma's being used as, the legal term is, exploited for financial gain. Liam felt rage bubble up his throat. That's insane. Vivian helped with the medical bills because she's a decent human being. The job is legitimate. We're not. I know. But they're twisting the facts to make it look bad. Rich woman swoops in, pays for everything, gets you a cushy job at her company. From a certain angle, it looks suspicious. Sarah put them up to this. Probably. She knows she doesn't have a real case, so she's trying to create leverage. Get temporary custody, make you panic, force you into a settlement. Marcus's voice hardened. We're not going to let that happen. I'm filing a response today. But Liam, you need to be prepared. There's going to be a hearing. You'll have to testify. So will Vivian. When? 2 weeks. Maybe less if the judge considers it truly urgent. Liam ended the call and stood in the middle of the mechanical room, surrounded by pipes and ductwork, trying to breathe. This was what he'd been afraid of. The moment when staying invisible wasn't enough, when he'd have to step into the light and defend everything he'd built. He called Vivian. Hey, she answered. What's wrong? Sarah filed an emergency motion. They're trying to take Emma now, before the full custody hearing, and he couldn't even say it. They're making it sound like you're paying me to exploit my daughter. Silence. Then very quietly, I'm going to destroy them. Vivian, no. Listen to me. I have tolerated a lot of things in my life. People questioning my competence, my methods, my right to exist in spaces I've earned, but attacking you and Emma, using my help as a weapon against you? Her voice went cold. That crosses a line. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. They made it my fight when they put my name in their filing. A pause. I'm calling my lawyers. We're going to bury Sarah's legal team in paperwork. We're going to make this so expensive and complicated that they'll beg to withdraw. I don't want you to... I know, you don't want help. You want to handle everything yourself because asking for support feels like weakness. Vivian's tone softened slightly. But Liam, you can't fight this alone, and you don't have to, so let me do this, please. He closed his eyes. Okay. I'll be at your apartment tonight. We're going to prepare for this hearing, and we're going to win. She hung up before he could argue. Liam went home early, told Carol he had a family emergency. She waved him off without questions, which was another small mercy in a day full of disasters. He picked up Emma from Mrs. Chen's and tried to act normal, but his daughter saw through it immediately. Something's wrong, Emma said in the car. It's nothing you need to worry about. Is it Mommy? Liam gripped the steering wheel. Emma, what do you remember about your mom? Not much. Emma stared out the window. She was sad a lot, and she yelled, and then she left and you said it was going to be okay. It is going to be okay. Then why do you look scared? Because he was. Because the thought of losing Emma felt like being buried alive. Because everything he'd sacrificed, everything he'd walked away from, would mean nothing if Sarah won. Your mom wants you to live with your aunt and uncle, Liam said carefully. And there's going to be a hearing where a judge decides what happens. Emma's eyes went wide. I don't want to live with Aunt Kelly. I don't even know her. I know, baby. Can they make me? Not if I can help it. When they got home, Vivian was already there, sitting on the stairs outside their building with her laptop bag and an expression that could cut glass. How long have you been waiting? Liam asked. 20 minutes. I would have picked the lock, but that seemed excessive. She stood, looked at Emma. Hey, sweetheart, how was school? Okay. Emma hugged her waist. Daddy says there's a hearing about where I live. Vivian crouched down to eye level. That's right. But I want you to know something. Your dad loves you more than anything in the world. And sometimes adults have to go through boring legal stuff to prove what everyone already knows. It doesn't mean anything's going to change. Promise? I promise we're going to fight like hell. Vivian caught herself. Like heck. We're going to fight like heck to keep you exactly where you belong. Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied, and ran upstairs to their apartment. Liam waited until she was inside before turning to Vivian. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep. I don't. She met his gaze. I called my legal team. They're already drafting a response to the emergency motion. They're also looking into Sarah's background, her sister's background, anything we can use to discredit their claims. That feels dirty. It is dirty. Welcome to custody battles. Vivian picked up her bag. They started this, Liam. They decided to make me the villain in their narrative. Now they get to deal with the consequences. Inside the apartment, Vivian spread out folders and legal documents on the kitchen table while Emma watched cartoons in the living room. She walked Liam through every piece of the motion, every allegation, every implication. They're saying I'm using Emma to ingratiate myself with you for what, exactly? Vivian's mouth twisted. What would I gain from this relationship? Control, influence, the appearance of being charitable. I have control and influence, and I don't need to fake charity. She tapped the document. This is harassment disguised as concern. They know it's baseless, but they're hoping the accusation alone will make you panic. It's working. Vivian looked at him. Then let's turn that panic into preparation. The hearing is in 12 days. Between now and then, we document everything. Emma's school records, medical records, your employment history, character witnesses. We build a case so airtight, they have no choice but to withdraw. And if they don't, then we go to court and I testify that I helped you because Emma deserved to live, that our relationship is genuine friendship, that everything I've done has been above board and motivated by basic human decency. She paused. Is that true? Is our relationship genuine? Liam thought about the dinners, the conversations, the way Vivian looked at Emma like she'd found something precious. Yeah, it's genuine. Good. Because they're going to ask. They're going to try to paint this as something transactional or inappropriate. We need to be on the same page about what we are. Which is what? Vivian hesitated. Friends, people who care about each other, who are… She stopped. I don't know how to finish that sentence. Neither do I. They worked until midnight, building timelines and witness lists. Mrs. Chen agreed to testify. So did Emma's teacher, who wrote a glowing letter about Emma's adjustment after the accident. Liam's new boss sent an email confirming his employment was based on qualifications, not favoritism. Piece by piece, they assembled a defense. Around 11, Emma wandered out in her pajamas. I can't sleep. Liam stood immediately. Bad dream? No, Emma climbed into his lap. I'm scared. Me too, baby. What if the judge doesn't believe you? Then we'll deal with it, together. Vivian watched them from across the table, and something raw crossed her face. Liam recognized it because he'd seen it in the hospital, that longing for something she'd convinced herself she couldn't have. Emma, Vivian said quietly, can I tell you something? Emma nodded. When I was your age, I didn't have a dad like yours. I didn't have anyone who fought for me or made me feel safe. I got moved from house to house, and nobody ever asked what I wanted. Vivian's voice steadied. But you have someone who would burn the world down before letting you go. That matters. Judges see that. People see that. Did anyone ever fight for you? Emma asked. No. That's why I learned to fight for myself. Emma considered this with the gravity only children can manage. You can be part of our family if you want. Then someone would fight for you. Vivian's eyes went bright. She blinked rapidly, looking away. Thank you, Emma. That's very kind. After Liam put Emma to bed, he found Vivian standing by the window, arms crossed, staring at the street below. You okay? He asked. Your daughter just offered to adopt me. I'm not sure how to process that. Liam moved to stand beside her. She likes you, and she's perceptive enough to see that you're alone. I'm alone by choice. Is that still true? Vivian turned to look at him. I don't know anymore. A month ago, yes. Absolutely. My life was exactly how I wanted it, controlled, predictable, mine. And then you showed up with your terrified eyes and unconscious daughter, and suddenly I'm cooking pasta and helping with homework and lying awake wondering what the hell I'm doing. Having second thoughts? Constantly, but I can't seem to walk away. Why not? Because Emma looks at me like I matter. Because you let me help without making me feel like a checkbook. Because for the first time in 15 years, I come home to an empty apartment and wish someone was there. She laughed without humor. That's pathetic, isn't it? It's human. Same thing, Vivian echoed her words from before. What about you? What do you want from this? Liam thought about how to answer that. Honestly, I want Emma safe. Everything else is secondary. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He met her gaze. I can't think about what I want beyond keeping my daughter. If I let myself want more, want you, and then I lose Emma anyway, I won't survive it. So I'm contingent on the custody case. No. You're... Liam struggled for words. You're important. You matter. But I can't build something with you while my entire world is on fire. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, yes. Vivian collected her things. I should go. Let you get some sleep. Vivian, it's fine, Liam. I understand priorities. I've built my career on them. But her voice carried an edge of hurt. He caught her arm at the door. This isn't about priorities. It's about survival. If I let myself need you, really need you, and you leave, I can't. He stopped. Everyone leaves eventually. Not everyone? Sarah did. My parents did. Every person I ever trusted in the Corps either died or got transferred. Liam forced himself to hold her gaze. I have 12 days to convince a judge I'm good enough for Emma. I can't also convince myself I'm good enough for you. Vivian's expression softened. You're already good enough, you idiot. That's not the question. Then what is? Whether you're brave enough to let someone stay. She pulled her arm free gently. Think about that while you're preparing for your hearing. She left, and Liam stood in the hallway wondering when his life had become so complicated. A month ago, his biggest concern was paying rent. Now he was fighting for custody, navigating feelings for a woman he barely knew, and trying to keep his past from surfacing in court documents. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he hadn't seen in years. Just 2 words. Found you. Liam's blood went cold. He dialed immediately. The voice that answered was one he'd hoped never to hear again. Carter. Been a long time. How did you get this number? You're not as invisible as you think. New job at Hale Enterprises? Dating the boss? That kind of thing creates a paper trail. A pause. Heard you're having custody trouble. What do you want, Dixon? To help. Old times' sake. We don't have old times. We have classified operations that never happened. Exactly. And some of those operations involve skills that might come in handy right now. People who owe favors. Judges who remember names. Dixon's voice went oily. I could make your custody problem disappear. No. You haven't heard my price. I don't care what it is. I walked away from that life. I'm not coming back. Even for your daughter? Liam's hand tightened on the phone. Especially for my daughter. She deserves better than a father who solves problems the way we used to. Suit yourself. But when you lose in court and Emma gets shipped off to strangers, remember I offered. Dixon laughed. You always were too principled for your own good, Carter. That's why you never made it past captain. The line went dead. Liam stood in his dark apartment, phone in hand, feeling the past creep up his spine like ice water. Dixon showing up meant someone was paying attention, meant his old life knew where he was, meant the careful anonymity he'd built was cracking. He thought about what Dixon had offered, the kind of help that came with strings and blood and compromises Liam had sworn he'd never make again. The kind that would win the custody case but cost him his soul. Then he thought about Emma, sleeping peacefully down the hall, trusting him to protect her the right way. There had to be another path. A way to fight Sarah without becoming someone he hated. A way to keep Emma and keep his integrity intact. He just had to find it before the hearing destroyed everything. Liam didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at Dixon's number on his phone, weighing the cost of every choice he'd ever made. By the time dawn broke gray and cold through the windows, he'd decided that if he was going down, he was going down clean. He texted Marcus at 6 a.m. Need to talk. Today. The response came 15 minutes later. My office. 9. Liam got Emma ready for school on autopilot, making her lunch, braiding her hair the way she liked it, listening to her chatter about a science project without really hearing the words. Mrs. Chen picked her up at the corner like always, and Liam watched until they disappeared around the block before getting in his truck. Marcus's office was in a renovated brownstone in the financial district, all dark wood and leather furniture that smelled like old money. The lawyer looked up from his desk when Liam walked in, took one look at his face, and poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a glass. It's 9 in the morning, Liam said. You look like you need it anyway. Liam took the glass and sat down. Someone from my past contacted me last night, offered to make the custody case disappear. Marcus's eyebrows rose. What kind of someone? The kind who solves problems through channels that aren't exactly legal. Liam took a drink, felt the burn. I turned him down, but it got me thinking, what if Sarah's people find out about my service record, the parts that are classified? How classified are we talking? The kind where my file is redacted to hell and back. The kind where I can't talk about most of what I did, even if I wanted to. Liam met Marcus's gaze. I was a Marine, yeah, but not the kind who drives trucks or stands guard. I did things I'm not proud of in places that officially don't exist. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, turning his own glass in his hands. That could actually help us. How? Military service, especially the kind that requires clearance, shows discipline, sacrifice, devotion to duty. The fact that you walked away from that career to raise your daughter, that's powerful. Marcus leaned forward. Unless there's something in your record that would disqualify you as a parent, it's an asset. There's nothing like that. No dishonorable conduct, no criminal charges. I left on good terms when my enlistment was up. Then we use it. We paint you as someone who gave up everything, a prestigious career, opportunities most people would kill for, to be Emma's father. Marcus made a note. Did you receive any commendations? Medals? A few. They're in a box somewhere. Find them. Bring them to court if we go to trial. Marcus studied him. This person who contacted you, are they going to be a problem? No, I made it clear I wasn't interested. Good. Because the last thing we need is some shadow from your past showing up during the hearing. Marcus pulled out a file. Speaking of which, I've been digging into Sarah's sister and her husband, Kelly and Robert Brennan. On paper, they look perfect. 6-figure household income, 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, stable marriage. But Robert's had 3 DUIs in the past 10 years, and Kelly's been through 2 bankruptcies. Liam sat up straighter. Can we use that? Absolutely. It undermines their argument that they're the more stable option. Marcus slid the file across the desk. There's more. Sarah's been living with them for the past 6 months. No job, no income of her own. She's completely dependent on them financially. So this whole custody play is Kelly's idea. That'd be my guess. Kelly can't have kids of her own. Medical records show multiple miscarriages and a hysterectomy 2 years ago. Sarah shows up broke and desperate, mentions Emma, and suddenly Kelly sees an opportunity. The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't about Emma's well-being. It was about Kelly wanting a daughter, and Sarah being weak enough to go along with it. What are our chances? Liam asked. If we get a reasonable judge? 70-30 in your favor? You're the biological parent with legal custody, no history of abuse or neglect, steady employment, strong character witnesses. The accident was exactly that, an accident. Marcus paused. But judges are unpredictable, especially in emergency hearings. They tend to err on the side of caution. If Sarah's lawyer can make a compelling enough case that Emma's in immediate danger, we could lose temporary custody, even if we'd win long term. And if we lose temporary custody? Then Emma goes to Kelly and Robert while the full investigation continues. Could be months. During that time, they'll be building their own case, documenting every way they can provide for her better than you can. Marcus's expression went grim. It's a lot harder to get a kid back once they've been removed from your care. Judges don't like to disrupt stability, even if that stability was built on bullshit. Liam felt the walls closing in. So what do? We fight. We put you on the stand and let you tell your story. We bring in every witness who can speak to your character and Emma's happiness. We expose every crack in their perfect family facade. Marcus locked eyes with him. And we pray the judge sees what's actually happening here. Liam left the office feeling marginally better, but no less terrified. He went to work, threw himself into a complicated repair schedule, tried not to think about the hearing that was now 10 days away. Vivian called around lunch. Hey, she said. How are you holding up? I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. A pause. I talked to my legal team. They've prepared a full affidavit about the hospital's situation, the job offer, everything. It makes clear that all of it was above board, and that you didn't solicit anything from me. Thank you. Liam, there's something else. Vivian's tone shifted. My lawyers did a background check on Sarah's legal team. The firm she's using specializes in high-conflict custody cases. They're expensive and aggressive, and they don't take cases they don't think they can win. Meaning? Meaning someone's bankrolling this. Sarah doesn't have money, and neither does her sister. Someone with deep pockets is paying for heavyweight lawyers. Liam's mind went immediately to Dixon. to the idea that his past wasn't just creeping up on him, it was actively interfering. Can you find out who? We're trying, but these things take time and we've only got 10 days. After they hung up, Liam stood in the middle of the mechanical room and let himself acknowledge the truth he'd been avoiding. He was being hunted. Not physically, not violently, but systematically dismantled by people who knew exactly how to hurt him. And the worst part was not knowing why. That evening, he picked up Emma from school himself. She chattered about her day, about how Mia had shared her cookies at lunch, about how her teacher said her book report was excellent. Normal kid stuff. The kind of ordinary, beautiful minutia that made up a childhood. "Daddy?" Emma said as they walked up the stairs to their apartment. "Are you mad at me?" Liam stopped. "What? No? Why would you think that? You've been quiet and sad. I thought maybe I did something wrong." He crouched down to her level, right there on the landing. "Emma, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Not the accident, not the hearing, none of it. You are perfect exactly as you are, and I am so lucky to be your dad." "Then why does Mommy want to take me away?" "Because," Liam struggled for an honest answer that wouldn't devastate her. "Because grown-ups sometimes make bad decisions, and your mom is making one now, but I'm going to fight it, okay? I'm not going to let anyone take you from me." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck. "I don't want to live with Aunt Kelly. She smells like fake flowers, and she talks in a high voice like I'm a baby." Despite everything, Liam smiled. "When did you meet Aunt Kelly?" "Last year. Mommy brought her to my school once. She kept calling me precious and trying to fix my hair." Emma pulled back. "I didn't like her." "Well, you don't have to, because you're staying right here with me." But even as he said it, Liam wondered if he was making promises he couldn't keep. The next week was a blur of preparation. Marcus coached him on testimony, running through likely questions and teaching him how to answer without getting defensive or emotional. Vivian drilled him on the timeline of events, making sure every detail was consistent. Mrs. Chen practiced her own testimony, and Emma's teacher sent over additional documentation about Emma's progress in school. Through it all, Liam felt the clock ticking down. 9 days, 8, 7. On day 6, Sarah called. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I have nothing to say to you." "Just listen, please," her voice cracked. "This has gotten out of control. You filed the motion, Sarah. You brought the lawyers. You're the one trying to take Emma away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Kelly just wanted, she thought." Sarah took a shaky breath. "I didn't know they were going to attack you like this. The stuff about Vivian, the implications that you're exploiting Emma. That wasn't me." "Then make it stop." "I can't. Kelly's running the show now. She hired the lawyers. She's calling the shots. I'm stuck in the middle." Liam felt a flash of something almost like pity. Sarah had always been weak, easily influenced, quick to follow whoever had the strongest personality in the room. He'd mistaken that for flexibility when they were dating, didn't realize until too late that she had no core of her own. "Why are you calling me?" he asked. "Because I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want Emma. I never did. That's why I left. But Kelly won't let it go, and the lawyers keep saying we have a case, and now there's someone else involved, someone paying for everything, and I don't even know who they are." Liam's pulse quickened. "What do you mean, someone else?" "Kelly said a benefactor contacted her, someone who heard about Emma's situation and wanted to help us get custody. They're covering all the legal fees, said they believed Emma deserved better." Sarah laughed bitterly. "I thought it sounded too good to be true, but Kelly ate it up, said it was a sign we were doing the right thing." "Did you get a name?" "No, Kelly handles everything. Liam, I'm scared. This feels wrong, like we're pawns in something bigger." "Then withdraw the motion. Tell your lawyers you've changed your mind." "I can't. Kelly would—" Sarah stopped. "I'm living in her house. I have nowhere else to go. If I don't do this, she'll kick me out. That's not my problem." I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but please, if this goes to court, don't destroy me up there. I know I deserve it, but—" Her voice broke. "I'm barely holding on as it is." Liam thought about all the things he wanted to say, all the anger and hurt he'd carried for 3 years. But in the end, Sarah was just sad and lost, and hating her wouldn't change anything. "I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep Emma," he said. "If that means telling the truth about why you left, I'll do it. But I'm not going to make up lies or attack you for sport. That's not who I am. Thank you, she whispered. After she hung up, Liam immediately called Marcus and relayed the conversation. A mystery benefactor, Marcus repeated. That's concerning. You think it's connected to my past? I think someone wants you to lose this case badly enough to fund Sarah's entire legal fight. The question is why? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Do you have enemies, Liam? People who'd benefit from you being discredited or vulnerable? Liam thought about Dixon's call, about the operations he'd been part of, the people he'd crossed, the secrets he carried. Maybe. I don't know. Well, we need to find out, because if someone's actively working against you, we need to know who and what their endgame is. That night, Liam did something he swore he'd never do. He opened his laptop, navigated to an encrypted chat service he hadn't used in 3 years, and logged into an account that should have been deleted. The channel was still active. Messages scrolled past, coded references to operations, personnel changes, intelligence briefings. Liam's hands shook as he typed. Anyone tracking Carter? The response came in seconds. Carter's been flagged for 2 months. Someone requested his file. Request was denied, but they're still sniffing around. Who? Don't know. Inquiry came through civilian channels. Someone with juice. Liam logged out and shut the laptop. His worst fear confirmed. Someone from the civilian world had tried to access his classified military record. Someone with enough influence to make the request, but not enough clearance to get approval. The pieces started to fit together. Someone wanted to know who he really was. When they couldn't get his file, they'd found another way to apply pressure. Through Emma. Make him desperate enough, scared enough, and eventually he'd have to reveal himself to fight back. But why? What did anyone gain from exposing him? Liam's phone rang. Vivian. I found something, she said without preamble. The law firm Sarah's using received a wire transfer for $200,000 3 weeks ago. It came from a shell company based in the Cayman Islands. Can you trace it? We're trying, but it's going to take time we don't have. The hearing's in 5 days, Liam. We need to decide, do we bring this up in court and risk looking paranoid, or do we keep quiet and stick to the facts? If we bring it up, what happens? Depends on the judge. It could make Sarah's team look suspicious, like they're being manipulated. Or it could backfire and make us look like conspiracy theorists trying to deflect from legitimate concerns. Vivian paused. What does your gut say? Liam thought about Dixon, about the encrypted messages, about Sarah's scared phone call. My gut says we're in the middle of something bigger than a custody dispute, but I can't prove it, and I can't explain it without revealing things I can't reveal. Then we focus on what we can prove. Your fitness as a parent, Emma's well-being, the holes in Sarah's case. We win this the conventional way. And if that's not enough, then we improvise. Vivian's voice softened. You're not alone in this, Liam. Whatever happens in that courtroom, I'm going to be there. I'm going to testify that you're a good father, that Emma is thriving, that everything I've done has been to help a child in need. They can twist it however they want, but that's the truth. Thank you. Stop thanking me. We're past that. A pause. Can I ask you something? Yeah. When this is over, when you win and Emma's safe, what happens with us? Liam closed his eyes. I don't know. That's honest, at least. She laughed, but it sounded forced. I keep telling myself not to get attached, that this is temporary, that once the crisis is over, you'll go back to your life and I'll go back to mine. But then Emma asks me to help with her homework, or you smile at something stupid I said, and I think maybe... She stopped. Never mind, this isn't the time. Vivian, I should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. I'll see you this weekend, okay? We'll do one final prep session before the hearing. She hung up before he could say what he was thinking, that he was already attached, that the idea of going back to life before her felt impossible, that he was terrified of wanting her because everyone he'd ever wanted had left. The weekend arrived too fast. Vivian came over Saturday afternoon, and they went through everything one more time. Emma sat quietly in the corner, coloring in a book, but clearly listening to every word. They're going to ask about our relationship, Vivian said. We need to be consistent. We met in the hospital. You were grateful. Friendship developed naturally. Nothing transactional. Nothing inappropriate. That's the truth. I know. But truth is subjective in a courtroom. They're going to try to make it look like something else. Let them try. Liam met her eyes. I'm not ashamed of knowing you. I'm not going to pretend you're just some random stranger who wrote a check. Good. Because I'm not good at pretending. Vivian glanced at her notes. Marcus is going to ask me about the hospital bills, the job offer, everything. I'll be clear that none of it came with strings attached, that I didn't even know you beyond those first few days when I made the decisions. What if they ask why you kept coming back? I'll tell them the truth. That Emma reminded me of losses I'd experienced, that helping you helped me process my own grief. Vivian's voice steadied. That sometimes people help each other just because they can. Emma looked up from her coloring. Are you scared, Vivian? A little, Vivian admitted. I don't like courtrooms, don't like being questioned by people trying to make me sound like a liar. But you're not a liar. No. But sometimes the truth doesn't matter as much as how you tell it. Vivian smiled. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm going to tell them exactly why you should stay with your dad. Because he loves me? Because he loves you, and because he's a good father, and because taking you away from him would be the cruelest thing anyone could do. That night, after Vivian left and Emma was asleep, Liam sat on his couch and let himself imagine losing. What it would feel like to watch Emma leave with strangers. What his apartment would sound like without her laughter filling it. What his life would become without her to fight for. The images were unbearable. His phone buzzed, a text from Dixon. Offer still stands. One phone call and this all goes away. Liam stared at the message for a long time. All he had to do was say yes. Make one compromise. Use the tools he'd sworn he'd never touch again. And Emma would be safe. But she'd also be his daughter, raised by a father who solved problems through intimidation and buried threats. She'd grow up knowing he'd chosen the easy way instead of the right way. And eventually, she'd learn to do the same. He deleted the message without responding. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Liam put on the only suit he owned, the one he'd bought for job interviews 3 years ago and hadn't worn since. It didn't fit quite right anymore, a little tight in the shoulders, but it would have to do. Emma watched him knot his tie from her spot on his bed. You look fancy. I feel ridiculous. You look like the dads on TV who have important jobs. Well, today I have an important job, convincing a judge that we belong together. Emma climbed off the bed and hugged him around the waist. You're going to win, Daddy. I know you are. Liam held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, memorizing the weight of her in his arms. I love you, baby girl, more than anything in the world. I love you too. Mrs. Chen arrived to take Emma to school, giving Liam an encouraging squeeze on the arm as she left. Then Liam was alone with his fear and his suit and the knowledge that in 3 hours his entire life would be decided by a stranger in a robe. He met Marcus outside the courthouse at 8:30. Vivian was already there, dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than Liam's truck, looking every inch the powerful CEO. But when she saw him, her expression softened. How are you feeling? She asked. Like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. She straightened his tie, a gesture so intimate and natural it made his chest ache. You're going to be fine. Just tell the truth and let them see who you really are. What if who I really am isn't enough? It will be. She said it with such conviction that he almost believed her. They walked into the courthouse together, through security and metal detectors, up elevators to the family court floor. The hallway was crowded with other broken families waiting for their turn at justice. Liam tried not to think about how many of these cases ended with someone losing everything. Then he saw Sarah. She stood next to a woman who had to be Kelly. Same blonde hair, same sharp features, but harder somehow. Colder. Kelly was talking to a man in an expensive suit, gesturing animatedly. Their legal team. Sarah caught Liam's eye and looked away quickly, ashamed. Mr. Carter? A bailiff appeared at his elbow. Judge Morrison is ready for you. This was it. No more preparation, no more delays, just Liam and the truth and a judge who held Emma's future in their hands. Marcus leaned in close. Remember, calm, honest, direct. Don't let them bait you into anger. You're a father fighting for his daughter. That's all that matters. Liam nodded and followed the bailiff into the courtroom, Vivian and Marcus flanking him like guards. The room was smaller than he expected, less dramatic, just wood paneling and fluorescent lights, and a bench where Judge Morrison sat reviewing documents. The judge was a woman in her 50s, African American, with reading glasses perched on her nose and an expression that gave nothing away. She looked up as they entered. "Let's begin," she said, and Liam's fate was set in motion. Sarah's lawyer went first, a shark in a tailored suit named Patricia Vance, who spoke in clipped, precise sentences designed to make everything sound worse than it was. She laid out the case methodically. Emma's accident, Liam's financial struggles, the sudden intervention of a wealthy benefactor who just happened to give him a high-paying job. The way Vance told it, Liam sounded like an opportunist at best, neglectful at worst. "Mr. Carter works night shifts at a warehouse," Vance said, pacing in front of the judge's bench. "He leaves his 7-year-old daughter in the care of an elderly neighbor while he's gone. On the night of the accident, Emma was unsupervised, fell down a flight of stairs, and nearly died from brain trauma. This isn't a one-time lapse in judgment. It's a pattern of inadequate care." Marcus stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Ms. Vance is mischaracterizing Mr. Carter's employment. He no longer works nights and hasn't for over 3 weeks." Judge Morrison looked at Vance over her reading glasses. "Counselor?" "The timeline is irrelevant, Your Honor. The point is that Emma was injured under his watch, and only through the intervention of a stranger did she receive proper medical care. A stranger he's now romantically involved with," Vance added, and Liam felt Vivian tense beside him. "Ms. Vivian Hale, CEO of Hale Enterprises, paid for Emma's surgery, a sum exceeding $170,000. Shortly after, she hired Mr. Carter for a position in her company at nearly double his previous salary. The timing raises serious questions about the nature of their relationship and whether Emma is being used as leverage in some kind of arrangement." "That's completely baseless," Marcus said sharply. "Your Honor, Ms. Vance is making inflammatory accusations without a shred of evidence." "Then let's hear from Mr. Carter himself." Judge Morrison gestured to the witness stand. "Mr. Carter, please approach." Liam's legs felt unsteady as he walked to the stand and was sworn in. He sat down, hyper-aware of everyone watching him. Sarah looking miserable in her chair, Kelly watching with cold calculation, Vivian's steady presence in the gallery. Marcus started with softball questions. Where did he live? How long had he had custody? What was his relationship with Emma like? Liam answered each one as calmly as he could, trying to sound like a normal father instead of someone whose entire world was on the line. "Tell us about the night of Emma's accident," Marcus said. Liam took a breath. "I was at work. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, watches Emma when I have evening shifts. She called me around 9:30 saying Emma had fallen. I got there as fast as I could. She was unconscious at the bottom of the stairs. I took her straight to the hospital. Had Emma ever fallen before? Not like that. She's a careful kid. Walks up and down those stairs every day." Liam's voice caught. "I still don't know exactly what happened. Maybe she tripped. Maybe she was running. But it was an accident, nothing more." "And how did you meet Ms. Hale?" "She was at the hospital the night Emma was admitted. She overheard the doctors talking about the surgery costs and offered to help." "Did you ask her for money?" "No, I didn't even know who she was." "And when she offered you a job at her company, did you solicit that?" "No. She saw that I needed stable work with better hours. The position was real, already open. I interviewed, I met qualifications. It wasn't charity." Marcus nodded. "How would you describe your relationship with Ms. Hale now?" Liam looked directly at Vivian. "We're friends. She cares about Emma. She's been supportive through all of this. There's nothing inappropriate or transactional about it." "Thank you, Mr. Carter." Marcus sat down and Liam braced himself. Patricia Vance stood slowly, shuffling papers like she had all the time in the world. When she finally approached, her smile was predatory. "Mr. Carter, you said Emma's accident was just that. An accident. But you weren't there when it happened, were you?" "No. In fact, you were at work. At a job that required you to be gone during hours when most children need supervision. Emma was being supervised. Mrs. Chen was watching her. An 80-year-old woman who didn't even see Emma fall." Vance raised her eyebrows. "Some might say that's not adequate supervision for a 7-year-old. Mrs. Chen has been watching Emma for 3 years. She's never had a problem before. Until she did. Until Emma nearly died." Vance let that hang in the air. "You mentioned you don't know how the fall happened. Doesn't that concern you, that your daughter suffered traumatic brain injury and you can't explain why?" Liam's jaw tightened. "Of course it concerns me, but accidents happen. Kids fall. That doesn't make me a bad father." Let's talk about your finances. Before Ms. Hale's intervention, how were you planning to pay for Emma's surgery? I would have figured it out. How? You had less than $6,000 in savings. The surgery cost nearly $200,000. How exactly were you going to figure it out? I would have taken out loans, sold what I needed to sell, whatever it took. Vance's expression was skeptical. But you didn't have to, did you? Because a wealthy woman you'd never met decided to pay for everything. Doesn't that strike you as unusual? I was grateful. I'm sure you were. Grateful enough to start a relationship with her? We're friends. Friends who have dinner together multiple times a week? Friends who she brings expensive gifts for your daughter? Friends who spend evenings alone in your apartment? Marcus stood. Objection. Ms. Vance is implying something that has no basis in fact. I'm establishing the nature of the relationship, Your Honor, Vance said smoothly, because it's relevant to whether Mr. Carter is making decisions in Emma's best interest or in service of maintaining his relationship with Ms. Hale. Judge Morrison looked at Liam. Mr. Carter, I'll allow the question. What is the nature of your relationship with Ms. Hale? Liam met the judge's eyes. Vivian is someone who showed up when I had nothing and no one. She helped because she could, not because she wanted something from me. Over time, we became friends, real friends, the kind who care about each other. If that's somehow wrong, then I don't know what to tell you. And the job? Vance pressed. That was also just generosity. It was an opportunity, one I earned. I show up, I do good work. I've gotten positive reviews from my supervisor. If you're trying to make it sound like I'm some kept man trading my daughter for money, you're way off. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you met a wealthy woman, she paid your bills, gave you a job, and now you're defending her like your life depends on it. My life doesn't depend on her, Liam said, his voice hard. But Emma's did. That surgery saved her. If accepting help makes me a bad person, then yeah, I'm a bad person. But I'm still the father who was there every single day, who sat by her bed for a week straight, who would die before letting anything happen to her. Vance studied him for a moment, then changed tactics. You were in the military, correct? Liam's stomach dropped. Yes. Marines, 12 years. What was your specialty? I'd rather not discuss that. Why not? Because most of what I did is classified. Classified. Vance smiled like she'd won something. How convenient. So we're just supposed to take your word that your military service was honorable, that there's nothing in your record that would concern this court? Marcus was on his feet. Your Honor, Mr. Carter's military record has no bearing on his fitness as a parent. He was honorably discharged with commendations. That's a matter of public record. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Carter, did you engage in combat during your service? Liam's hands clenched. Yes. Did you kill people? The courtroom went silent. Yes, Liam said quietly. I did what I was ordered to do in service of my country. And when my daughter was born and her mother left, I walked away from that life because I wanted to be a father more than I wanted to be a soldier. That's not something I'm ashamed of. Vance pressed on. But you're trained in violence, in killing. How do we know that training doesn't affect how you parent Emma? Because I've never raised a hand to her. Never would. The whole point of leaving was so she'd never see that part of me. Liam's voice shook with controlled anger. You want to make me sound dangerous? Fine. I am dangerous when I need to be, but not to my daughter. Never to her. Yet she ended up in the hospital because she fell downstairs, not because of anything I did. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mr. Carter, control yourself. Liam forced himself to breathe. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Vance looked satisfied. No further questions. The next hour was a blur of testimony. Mrs. Chen took the stand and fiercely defended Liam, nearly crying when she described how devoted he was to Emma. Emma's teacher testified that Emma was a happy, well-adjusted child who spoke lovingly about her father. Even Carol, Liam's supervisor, appeared via video call to confirm that his job was legitimate and his performance excellent. Then Vivian was called. She walked to the stand with her shoulders back, chin high, every inch the CEO. But when she was sworn in and sat down, Liam saw the slight tremor in her hands. Marcus started gently. Ms. Hale, how did you meet Mr. Carter? I was at St. Catherine's Hospital for a board meeting. I heard about a father in the emergency room whose daughter needed surgery but couldn't afford it. I went to see if I could help." "Why?" Vivian's voice steadied. "Because 15 years ago I had a daughter who died in a hospital. I was 22, broke and alone. The medical bills destroyed me financially. I swore if I ever had the means, I'd make sure no other parent went through that. When I saw Liam with Emma," she stopped, swallowed. "I saw myself. And I had the power to change the outcome this time." So the payment for Emma's surgery was motivated by personal experience, not romantic interest? I didn't know Liam beyond those first few minutes. I wasn't thinking about relationships. I was thinking about a child who deserved to live. And the job you offered him? That came later, after I'd seen how hard he was working, how dedicated he was to giving Emma a stable life. I had an opening that matched his skill set. I offered it. He accepted, that's all. Marcus nodded. "How would you characterize your relationship with Mr. Carter now?" Vivian looked directly at Liam. "He's important to me. So is Emma. They've become..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "They've become people I care deeply about. People I want in my life. There's nothing sordid or transactional about it. It's just human connection." "Thank you, Ms. Hale." Patricia Vance approached like a cat with a mouse. "Ms. Hale, you're a very successful businesswoman. You run a company worth millions. You have resources most people can only dream of. That's accurate. And yet you're asking this court to believe that you developed feelings for a warehouse worker?" Vivian's eyes went cold. "I'm asking this court to believe that I'm capable of seeing past job titles to the person underneath. Liam is intelligent, capable, and devoted. Those qualities don't disappear because he works with his hands instead of pushing paper. But you gave him a job that doesn't require manual labor. You elevated his status. Some might say you're trying to create a version of him that fits your world better. Some might say I saw someone working beneath his potential and offered him an opportunity. People do that all the time. It's called mentorship. Or grooming." Marcus shot to his feet. "Objection? That's completely inappropriate." Judge Morrison's expression darkened. "Ms. Vance, you're walking a very thin line. Rephrase or move on." Vance didn't look chastened. "Ms. Hale, isn't it true that you've invited Mr. Carter and Emma to your home on multiple occasions?" "Yes." "Cooked for them? Bought gifts for Emma?" "Yes." "Spent time alone with Mr. Carter while Emma was in another room?" "We're friends. Friends spend time together. Friends don't usually pay each other's medical bills or arrange employment. Friends help each other when they can. That's what friendship means." Vivian leaned forward. "I understand you're trying to make this sound improper, but the truth is simple. I met someone who needed help. I helped, and over time we became friends. If that's so impossible to believe, it says more about you than about me." Vance's smile was thin. "You mentioned you had a daughter who died. That must have been devastating." Vivian went very still. "It was. And seeing Emma, a little girl fighting for her life, that must have brought up a lot of painful memories." "It did. So, would you say your involvement with this family is driven more by your own unresolved grief than by genuine concern for Emma's well-being?" The courtroom held its breath. Vivian's voice, when it came, was ice over steel. "My grief is resolved enough that I can help a child without projecting my loss onto her. Emma is her own person, vibrant, funny, smart. She's nothing like my daughter was, and I don't confuse the two. But yes, my experience makes me more aware of how fragile life is, how important it is to fight for the people who matter. So if you're asking whether my past influences my present, the answer is yes. It makes me a better friend to this family, not a worse one." Vance tried a few more angles, but Vivian didn't budge. When she finally stepped down, Liam wanted to stand and applaud. The last witness was Sarah. She looked small on the stand, diminished somehow. Her lawyer walked her through a prepared statement about wanting what was best for Emma, about concern over the accident, about how Kelly and Robert could provide stability. But her heart wasn't in it. Liam could see that. So could Judge Morrison. Marcus's cross-examination was brutal, but fair. He established that Sarah hadn't seen Emma in 3 years, that she'd voluntarily given up custody, that she had no income, no home of her own, was completely dependent on her sister. "Ms. Carter, who's paying for your legal representation?" Marcus asked. Sarah hesitated. My sister found a benefactor, someone who wanted to help. Do you know who this benefactor is? No. Doesn't that concern you, that a stranger is funding your attempt to take your daughter from her father? Kelly says they're just generous, that they believe Emma deserves better. Better than a father who loves her? A father who's been her primary caregiver for 3 years? Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. Ms. Carter, do you actually want custody of Emma? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The truth, please. No. The word came out broken. No, I don't. I can't. I'm not good at being a mother. I never was. That's why I left. Kelly made a strangled sound from the gallery, but Sarah kept talking. Liam is a good father. Emma's happy with him. I know that. But Kelly she said Emma deserved a real family with 2 parents and a nice house. And I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I owed it to Emma to try. Sarah wiped her eyes. But the lawyers, the accusations, making Liam sound like a bad person when he's not, this isn't what I wanted. Then why are you here? Marcus asked quietly. Because I'm weak. Because Kelly took me in when I had nowhere else to go, and this was the price. Because I'm a coward who can't even fight for my own daughter properly. Sarah looked at Liam. I'm sorry, for all of it. You were right to keep her. I should never have challenged that. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison called a 15-minute recess. Liam stepped outside into the hallway, his heart hammering. Vivian followed. That was, she started. A disaster, Liam finished. No, Sarah just tanked her own case. She admitted she doesn't want custody. But Kelly does. And whoever's funding this wants me to lose. They stood in the hallway, and Liam felt the walls closing in again. Even with Sarah's testimony, there was still a judge who had to decide. Still a system that could rip Emma away despite everything. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Liam turned to find a stranger approaching, mid-40s, professional, carrying a briefcase. I'm Jennifer Cho. I represent the benefactor who's been funding Ms. Carter's legal case. Liam's blood went cold. What do you want? To make you an offer. My client is willing to withdraw all support for the custody challenge on one condition. What condition? Jennifer Cho smiled. That you resign from Hale Enterprises and sever all contact with Ms. Hale. Vivian stepped forward. Who's your client? That's confidential. Like hell it is. Someone's been manipulating this case from the start. I want to know who. My client wishes to remain anonymous, but they're prepared to make this very simple. Cho looked at Liam. Walk away from Ms. Hale, and Emma stays with you. Continue the relationship, and we'll fight this custody battle until you have nothing left. Liam felt like he'd been punched. Why? What does any of this have to do with Vivian? That's not my concern. I'm simply delivering the offer. You have until the judge returns to decide. She walked away, leaving Liam and Vivian staring after her. This is about me, Vivian said, her voice shaking. Someone's using Emma to get to me, or to get to you through me, or both. Liam's mind raced. Dixon's call, the attempts to access his military record, the shell company funding Sarah's lawyers. It all pointed to someone who knew who he used to be and wanted to exploit it. What are you going to do? Vivian asked. Liam looked at her. This woman who'd saved his daughter, who'd fought beside him, who'd become something he wasn't ready to name but couldn't imagine losing. Then he thought about Emma, waiting to hear if she'd get to stay home. I'm going to tell them to go to hell, he said. Liam, no, I'm not negotiating with whoever this is. I'm not letting them dictate my life or who I care about. He grabbed Vivian's hand. Emma deserves a father who doesn't back down when threatened, and you deserve someone who doesn't abandon you the second things get hard. Vivian's eyes were bright. You could lose her, or I could win, and we could build something real instead of letting fear make our choices. The bailiff called them back inside. Judge Morrison was already at her bench, reviewing notes. When everyone was seated, she looked up. I've heard enough testimony, she said. This case presents some unusual circumstances, but at its core, the question is simple. What's in Emma's best interest? Liam held his breath. Ms. Carter's petition alleges that Mr. Carter cannot adequately provide for his daughter due to financial constraints and inadequate supervision. However, the evidence shows that Mr. Carter has stable employment, adequate housing, and a strong support system. The accident, while tragic, was exactly that, an accident. There's no pattern of neglect or abuse. Judge Morrison looked at Sarah. I'm also troubled by Ms. Carter's testimony. She admitted under oath that she doesn't actually want custody and that this petition is being driven by external parties. That's not a basis for removing a child from a loving home. Liam's heart started to beat faster. As for the relationship between Mr. Carter and Ms. Hale, I find nothing improper about it. Adults are allowed to form friendships and offer each other support. The timing may be unusual, but unusual isn't illegal or harmful to the child. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. The petition for emergency custody transfer is denied. Emma Carter will remain in the custody of her father, Liam Carter. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into who's funding Ms. Carter's legal representation and why. If I find evidence of manipulation or bad faith, there will be consequences. The gavel came down, and Liam's knees nearly buckled. He'd won. Marcus was shaking his hand, grinning. Vivian grabbed him in a hug that lifted him off his feet. In the gallery, Mrs. Chen was crying happy tears. Sarah approached as they left the courtroom, Kelly trailing behind, looking furious. Liam, Sarah said quietly, I meant what I said in there. I'm sorry. For all of it. Just stay away from us, Liam said. Not angry, just tired. Emma doesn't need you confusing her life. Sarah nodded and walked away. Kelly glared at Vivian like she wanted to say something, but Jennifer Cho appeared and ushered them both toward the exit. Outside the courthouse, Liam stood on the steps and breathed cold air like he'd been drowning. Vivian stood beside him, their shoulders touching. We should pick up Emma, Vivian said. Tell her it's over. Together? Yeah, together. They collected Emma from school, and the sight of her running toward them, healthy, happy, made Liam's chest tight. She threw herself into his arms. Did you win, Daddy? Yeah, baby, we won. Emma pulled back, looked at Vivian. Does this mean you're staying? Vivian crouched down. If your dad wants me to, yeah, I'd like to stay. Do you want her to stay, Daddy? Liam looked at Vivian, at this woman who'd fought for them when she had every reason to walk away. Yeah, I do. Emma grinned. Good. Because I already told Mia you were going to be my new mom. Emma! Liam's face went red. But Vivian just laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Liam had ever heard. That night, after Emma was asleep and the adrenaline had finally worn off, Liam and Vivian sat on his couch with glasses of wine they were too exhausted to drink. Jennifer Cho never said who her client was, Vivian said. That's going to drive me crazy. Judge Morrison ordered an investigation. We'll find out eventually. What if they come back? What if this isn't over? Liam took her hand. Then we deal with it. Together. Like we dealt with this. Vivian leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm not good at this, you know. Relationships. Letting people in. I'm going to mess it up. So am I. I'm basically a disaster held together with duct tape and stubbornness. We're quite a pair. Yeah, we are. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Liam realized something had shifted. The fear that had been his constant companion for 3 years. The terror of losing Emma, of not being enough, of letting anyone close, had loosened its grip. He still didn't have all the answers. Didn't know who'd been manipulating the custody case or why. Didn't know if he and Vivian would work long-term or crash and burn. But he knew Emma was safe. Knew he had people who cared about him. Knew he didn't have to face the world alone anymore. Vivian, he said quietly. Yeah? Thank you for everything. For saving Emma. For fighting for us. For staying. She lifted her head to look at him. You would have done the same for me. In a heartbeat, she smiled. And in that moment, Liam understood something important. Love wasn't about perfect people finding each other. It was about broken people choosing to be brave together. It was about showing up even when you were scared. About fighting for each other even when the odds were terrible. It was about a single father and a lonely CEO finding family in the wreckage of their fears. 2 months later, the investigation Judge Morrison ordered finally bore fruit. Jennifer Cho's client turned out to be a corporate rival of Vivian's. someone who'd lost a major contract to Hale Enterprises and decided to strike back by targeting her personal life. The whole custody case had been designed to discredit Vivian, make her look reckless and inappropriate, damage her reputation. It backfired spectacularly. The rival's company faced legal consequences, and Vivian's board rallied around her. If anything, the scandal made her stronger. Dixon never called again. Whoever had tried to access Liam's military file apparently decided he wasn't worth the trouble. Or maybe they realized that Liam Carter, the invisible man who'd walked away from everything, was actually more dangerous when he had something to fight for. Sarah signed over full custody without contest. Kelly stopped returning her calls. Last Liam heard, Sarah had moved to another state, finally trying to build a life of her own. Emma thrived. Her head healed completely, and she threw herself back into school with the resilience only children have. She stopped asking about her mother and started talking about Vivian like she'd always been part of their family. Liam kept his job at Hale Enterprises and discovered he was actually good at it. Carol promoted him after 6 months, and he found satisfaction in building something legitimate with his own skills. And Vivian became the constant presence in their lives that neither of them knew they needed. She taught Emma about business and numbers. She taught Liam about letting people help without feeling weak. She learned how to be gentle, how to need people, how to build a family from scratch when life denied her the conventional path. They didn't get married right away, didn't rush into anything. Both of them had been burned too badly to move without caution. But a year after the custody hearing, Liam asked Vivian to move in. Not because he needed her to, his apartment was still small and cramped and decidedly unglamorous, but because coming home to her felt right. Because Emma asked every morning if Vivian was coming over. Because love, it turned out, wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about showing up day after day, choosing each other even when it was hard. On a random Tuesday evening, Liam found himself cooking dinner while Emma did homework at the kitchen table and Vivian worked on her laptop on the couch. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomato sauce. The TV played some animated movie in the background. It was completely ordinary. It was perfect. Emma looked up from her math worksheet. "Daddy, what's 7 times 8? 56. Are you sure?" "Pretty sure I remember basic multiplication, baby." Vivian laughed from the couch. "She's checking your work. That's my influence." "Great. Now I have 2 people questioning everything I do." "You love it," Vivian said. And the hell of it was, he did. Liam had spent years believing that wanting more than survival was dangerous, that letting people close meant giving them the power to destroy you, that being alone was safer than being loved. But standing in his cramped kitchen with his daughter's math homework on the table and Vivian's laughter in his ears, he realized he'd been wrong. The real danger wasn't in letting people in, it was in keeping them out, in protecting yourself so thoroughly that you forgot what you were protecting yourself for. Emma was safe. Vivian was here. And Liam had finally learned that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was let yourself be happy. "Dinner's ready," he called, and his family gathered around the table like they'd done it 1,000 times before. Like they do it 1,000 times more. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Liam Carter looked at his life and thought, "This is enough. This is everything." Because healing doesn't mean erasing the scars. It means learning to live fully despite them. It means choosing connection over safety, vulnerability over control, love over fear. It means finding people worth fighting for and letting them fight for you in return. It means coming home to a cramped apartment that smells like tomato sauce and sounds like laughter and feels like the one thing you thought you'd never deserve. It means being brave enough to stay.